Hare Krishna, welcome back to our continuing series of discussions on the Bhagavad Puran under the title of Bhakti Yoga Journeys. In our last week's discussion, we started this journey of Narada Muni. As part of that, we saw the journey of Vyasa, and we were at the point where Vyasa, he went through this great despondency, and Narada gave him the reason for his despondency was despite writing so many Vedic literature, he did not sufficiently glorify the Lord in any literature, right? And that's where we left off. And we also discussed in our previous discussion about what's the difference between the seeker and the student. And we saw that how the seeker is very, very clear about their destination, whereas the student is very, very clear about their destination, whereas the seeker is still trying to find their destination. Right? So in today's class, Narada is going to explain a very, very important concept as to what is that understanding that makes us graduate from a seeker to a student. What is that one important concept that we should be deeply rooted in that will help us actually deal with lots of confusion, lots of anxiety, that brings about a lot of clarity in our life. So that very, very powerful wisdom Narada is going to share in the next few verses, and we'll spend some quality time trying to unpack these statements of Narad Muni. So I would like to share one particular verse. This is, so we are seeing today first canto, 5th chapter, text number 14. Right? And this is what Narada, he describes, saying, whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms and names to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat that has no resting place. Very, very powerful statement here Narada is making. That so there are these two things. There is the word vision that Narada is using here. Then there are words like goals and targets and blah, 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 right? So let's use the word goal. There is the word goal and there's a word vision. They have a different connotation, right? Especially when we are understanding from this philosophical aspect. What are, goals and targets? They are usually very short term. They are sometimes very contextual, very, very specific, and they can be very, very specific, direct. Like, for example, I need to cook food today, right? Something as simple as that. Or I need to earn X amount of money, or I need to get a particular degree, or I need to finish this particular task, build a house, and so on and so forth, right? So there are these goals, very, very specific goals that we may have. Vision is something more deeper. It's something more long term. And many times this vision is very subtle and abstract. It's an inner space. It's a feeling that which drives this vision. Goals are usually very tangible, as we discussed, and therefore they are very, they are driven by somewhere by the head. But vision is something that comes from the heart, right? And that is the point that Narada here is trying to make, that look, Vyasa, in your description of the Vedas, you have given lots and lots of goals to people. But the point, and you're true, because the Vedas also offer different goals to people based on their proclivity, their nature, their inclination, etc. Right? But you have to make sure that the purpose of the Vedas to give all these different goals is to align everybody's vision to transcendence, vision towards the absolute truth, vision towards connection to Krishna. If you are missing that point, then you are simply agitating the minds of people, because all these different names and forms are the different goals that we take up to in our life. But the vision is something very different. The vision, while mind you, goals are very, very important. We need to have some goals, right? But then if you're just absorbed in those goals without having a clear-cut vision, you will be just like this boat which has no resting place. As a wind comes, you will keep wandering around. When a boat is not anchored in one particular spot, as the direction of the wind comes, the boat will keep drifting in that direction. It may seem nice because there is a lot of movement happening, but every movement need not indicate growth. When the movement is in line with a particular vision, only then there is growth and internal satisfaction, right? And this is the problem more and more people of the world today are facing, because there is a lot of movement. People are not sitting idle, right? People are extremely busy today, right? In fact, Srila Prabhupada, he would joke about this. He would say there are 4 kinds of people in this world, right? First, he would say, is the lazy fool. They are just lying idle, don't do anything. They don't have the acumen to do anything. They're just lying there. That is one category. And they're harmless also. Then there is what Prabhupada likes to call as the busy, intelligent person. A majority of the world I wouldn't say majority of the world, but yeah, there are a lot of people like that. Extremely smart and extremely busy, but poor people, they're working so hard, but they don't know why they are working. They're extremely smart, that way intelligent from a worldly sense, but and they're very busy also. And many times we look up to such people as our role models, right? But guess what Prabhupada says? No, he's talked about the 3rd category of people. He says there is the lazy, intelligent person, meaning they are smart and they are lazy in a sense, not from an ordinary sense. They put just the amount of effort needed. They don't over endeavor. That's what it means by lazy, right? And he says devotees should be like that. A spiritualist should be like that. They should be lazy, intelligent, meaning they don't over endeavor and they don't under endeavor also. Balance is the key, right? Samatvam yoga muchyate. Balance means yoga. Then he described the 4th category called as the busy fool. And he said this is the most dangerous category of people. And the world around us is surrounded by such people. They are extremely busy, right? They like to look busy and they're actually busy doing something or other, but they have no idea what they are doing. They are like this, like the boat which has no resting place, just agitated by the current trends of the society. They keep doing this, doing that, and they are like a anchorless boat. Such a person will easily get disturbed, right? So therefore, having this vision is very, and so when you why having this vision is so very, very important. When there is no vision, our motivation or lack of it is gauged by success or failure. I repeat, when there is no vision in our life, clear-cut vision of our life, when success comes, we are very enthusiastic. We feel like, yes, this is the right activity for me. This is the thing I want to do in my life. This is me. This is what drives me. And when failure comes, you are like confused, oh no, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or I don't like this activity. I don't want to get out of my bed today, right? So, but when you have a vision, then the success and you rise past success and failure paradigm, there is only growth that you are aspiring for. When there is success, you humbly grow. When there is failure, you prayerfully grow. Right? So success or failure, they don't deter your enthusiasm, because failures are also growth. We heard many times here this cliched statement, failure is a stepping stone to success. Failure is stepping stone to success when the vision is clear. Otherwise, it can demotivate us, right? So this is the point. When we lack this vision, then we may end up focusing so much on these petty goals of our life, right? Mind you, I'm saying petty from a bigger perspective, but we need to have goals. I mean, we need to pay bills, so therefore we need some job. We need to, do a lot of things around us. So yeah, we need to work, right? That is not a option for us. We all have to engage with this world. But while engaging with this world, am I just looking at those intermittent goals, my daily goals, my weekly goals, my monthly goals, or even my annual goals? Is that what it is driving me? Or is there some big vision, a vision that transcends even lifetimes, an eternal vision, an unchanging vision, right? Recently, I was hearing in a talk, very nice point which resonated with me. When we go in the midst of nature, we all feel so peaceful, we all feel so reverential, we all feel so spiritual. Suddenly, we feel very grounded when you just imagine, visualize yourself. If you want, even you can close your eyes and visualize sitting in front of the mighty Himalayas, or in this, in a big forest with those big gigantic trees, and or some gigantic rivers. The moment you are surrounded by the majesty of nature, we feel so calm and grounded. And you know why? Because they all signify permanence, they all signify eternality. All those gigantic mountains, those big gigantic trees, they have outlived you. They have been living for hundreds of years. So when you come in contact with something that is signifying that sat, the eternality, immediately that invokes that sense of sat within you, and that is why we feel peaceful. But when we lack that eternal vision, then all these intermittent goals, the names and forms, they only simply agitate the mind. So it's very, very important to be rooted in that permanent vision. There's a nice story in this regard. So this one time, there was a young boy who wanted to become, like a wrestler, some kind of a physical sport activity he wanted to take up to, but he was very tiny and puny. And every time he would go for a wrestling match, people would easily defeat him, and this guy became very despondent. So his mother told him that, I know wise people tell that if you pray to God, God fulfills all your wishes. Maybe you can pray to God to make you, to become a wrestling champion. Then the boy says, okay, he starts praying. Very, very sincerely, he starts praying. And guess what happens? He hears the word of God. And God tells him, my dear child, you want to become the unrivaled wrestling champion? Go to the top of the mountain near your village. At the edge of the cliff, there is this big, huge boulder, a big, huge rock. Push that rock down the mountain. Immediately, you will become a champion. So this boy thought, wow, that's all I have to do to please God. Just push the rock down the mountain, and then God will give me all the superpowers to become a wrestling champion. He says, very good. He goes. And he starts, somehow, it's a tough climb. He climbs up the mountain, goes to the cliff, on the edge of the cliff, and he finds there, oh, yes, there is the rock just right at the edge, just small push and it would fall. He goes there. He thinks it's a small push. He goes there and starts pushing that rock. And the rock doesn't budge even an inch. He starts pushing and pushing and pushing. Nothing happens. So he becomes very, very disappointed. Whole day he pushes, by the way, become disappointed. Comes home, sleeps. Next day he says, no, I'm going to do it today. He goes up, packs his lunch, everything, goes there, spends time on top of it, pushing all day. Again comes down, doesn't happen. 1 year passes. Finally, after 1 year, this fellow says, it's not going to happen. I think God tricked me. He goes home, and on the way, while going home, he starts cursing God. You cheated me, da 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 da. If you are a real God, speak back and tell me, why you cheated me, etc., etc. Then immediately again, God speaks to him. Says, my dear child, what happened? Why are you so upset with me? He says, yes, you asked me to push that rock. 1 year, I've been consistently pushing that rock. Nothing has happened. You tricked me. That was an impossible rock to push, etc. So then God replies, what did you want? Why did you want to push that rock? So that I can become the unrivaled wrestler. And God says, just look at yourself once. And he looks at himself. That 1 year, every day he was hiking up the mountain and pushing that rock. He built a lot of muscles. That was a workout for him. And in that 1 year, because of that workout, he became so strong and stout that now he actually looked like an unrivaled wrestler, and he had the strength of an unrivaled wrestler. So the point here is that when the vision is not clear, you only see rocks in your way. But when the vision is clear, you see growth happening. And he could not see his own growth because he was so obsessed with just pushing that rock, he forgot the purpose. Why am I pushing that rock? So there is nothing wrong in the different instructions the Vedas are giving. Some part of the Vedas may glorify karma, some part may glorify jnana, some part may glorify dhyana, some part may glorify bhakti. There's nothing wrong. The Vedas are not confusing us. The vision behind all these different paths is to ultimately enhance our consciousness, absorb our consciousness in the absolute truth in Krishna. When this end vision is not clear, people will get confused. And this is the point which Narada was trying to point out. Look, Vyasa, you did a brilliant job compiling all the Vedic literature, but you forgot to mention the end vision. So people will be so obsessed pushing the rock, they will think spirituality is about pushing the rock. Right? And they'll, even if they manage to push the rock, they'll be happy. Oh, finally I pushed the rock. Let me go home and sleep now. They forget that the purpose is to grow internally, is to elevate your consciousness, to connect to yourself, have self-realization, and through self-realization, have the realization of the absolute truth, have God realization. Right? So this was the the mistake that Narada points out. And then he says, look, the nature of this world is we all need to be occupied in this world. And so all the recommendations given in the Vedas, they're all predominantly worldly engaged activities. Right? The Vedas do not say, okay, run away, go to the forest and sit, give up all your work, give up all your job, give up all your, whatever other responsibilities and go sit in the forest. That's not the common recommendation of the Vedas. Majority of the Vedas are socially engaged activities. So because now they are socially getting engaged, look, by default, people are naturally inclined to enjoy. And now you have legitimized their enjoyment by saying, oh, look, Vedas are saying this, the great Vyasa has also approved this, right? Or in other words, to draw parallels with our life, by default, people are so myopic in their vision, so short-sighted in their vision, they cannot see long-term, they cannot have long-term purpose, they cannot see the long-term vision. So if somebody is overemphasizing so much on short-term goals, now people will definitely stop thinking about long-term vision and only focus on short-term goals. Oh, Vyasa, this is the way you have misguided people. So Narada points that out. And then he says, this whole teachings, it requires great level of to engage with this material energy. It requires great level of detachment. Only a very expert person who's retired from activities of material happiness, they deserve to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. This, this path of materially involved, but detached from the fruits of their action, is a very advanced state of consciousness, right? People are not going to see the inner detachment. They will only see the outer engagement, and they will say, oh, look, Vyasa is asking us to enjoy this world. They may mistake your own teachings, right? Therefore, those who are not well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord, right? So we'll come about this why description of transcendental activity a little later. He's going to repeat this point again, right? And then he says, because there is a big danger in this path of being materially involved, because material nature is so strong. Even a person sometimes with good noble intentions may get carried away because they may lack that higher vision. So there's a big danger involved in this path of worldly engagement. Then naturally a question may come, oh, you are saying there's so much danger in karma, jnana and dhyana. Are you saying there's no danger in this process of bhakti where externally you are involved with this world but internally you are detached? Are you saying there is no danger in this path? Are you saying even a beginner in this bhakti process, they become so advanced that they become so? I don't see people are so advanced. Even the beginner in bhakti yoga also has their own past karmic baggages, and they also sometimes are limited in their consciousness. So what about that? So there he gives a very, very powerful verse. He says, one who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. This is such a powerful statement because, as we just discussed earlier, when you lack vision, there is success or fall down or failure. But when you have vision, there is only growth. Therefore, he says, for such a person whose vision is in transcendence, whose vision is in devotion, whose vision is connection to the Supreme Lord, such a person may sometimes accidentally go through failures in life, but because they are rooted about their goal, for them, they will continue, they will pick up, stand up, and continue, right? Because there's a higher motivation which is driving them. But on the other hand, a person who lacks vision, even if they become successful in their endeavors, that success is only going to blind them from the ultimate goal. So what use is that success when they lack that vision, right? So this verse is a very powerful verse, and actually I have a little story, a personal story also to share regarding this verse, because this verse has influenced me very strongly in my life at a very important juncture in my life. The first time I read this verse was in 2007, 2008, somewhere around that time. And this is the time when I was still working in my corporate life, and I was at a crossroads. I really, really wanted to become like a full-time student of the Gita and the Bhagavatam and the Vedic philosophy. But then I had my own doubts about, what if I'm not successful? Right? Then I lose my career and I will not have spiritual growth. That way I lose everything. So I was at a very important juncture, and somehow I was sitting in office and reading this Bhagavatam. During lunchtime, I got some free time. So I would, instead of doing some gossip, I used to come and read Bhagavatam in my laptop. So when I read this verse, I said, wow, this is such a powerful instruction Narada is giving, that in this path, even if sometimes there may be some accidental failures due to immaturity of the practitioner, there's no danger of being unsuccessful, because sometimes if Krishna so decides success is the way for your growth, Krishna will award you success. And if failure is the way for your growth, he'll give you failures. So there's no danger that way, because either way, one who has taken up the path of devotional service, personal growth is guaranteed, right? And true to this, somehow that particular, those few months in my life are so agitating in my mind, so disturbing, so confusing. And because also, back then we had this kind of a cutoff. When you wanted to become like a full-time student, we had a cutoff. You had to, the program would begin, on the 1st of May. And so, which means So working 3 months back, no, I think it was April, I think. Yeah, somewhere around that time, April, May. And working 3 months backwards, because in the company that I was working for, there was a 3 month notice period, which means I had to put up my papers somewhere around end of Jan, early Feb. And I read this verse somewhere around in December. And what was happening, I was involved in a very critical project, and one particular module of the project, I was the only person handling that, because somehow the team was like that. So and I didn't want to leave the project in between, and I knew even if I put up my papers, the boss will not allow me to go. So the only way I can leave the company is when I finish my module. And there was a major worries, issues happening, and I mean challenges coming. I was trying to code something, and certain hardware was not working, blah, blah, a lot of things were going on. And I was thinking, oh my God, will I ever finish this project before January? I want to put up my paper soon, then 3 months. I was thinking all that. And somehow, it's funny how things work. In that confusion, I went home. And when I went home, like a regular visit, my mom pointed out to some shoes in my house. And she said, hey, are these shoes yours? I was cleaning the entire house, the closet, everything. I found these shoes, your old shoes. Are these yours? And somehow, I have absolutely no recollection of ever owning those shoes. And I have an older brother. It's not his shoes either. Somehow, those shoes ended up in the house. But anyway, I like them. So I said, okay, I mean, they're good, nice work, formal work shoes. I can wear them to office. So I took them. And somehow I noticed that whenever I would wear those shoes to work, there was success at work. So like, and suddenly somehow it became a little superstition or what, I don't know what was happening. I noticed a pattern that whenever I would wear those shoes, that day, that particular module of my work used to be successful. So then I thought, oh wow, this is nice. So literally, I became a devotee of those shoes. I started wearing those shoes every day without fail. And for last almost like 2 or 3 months, I was struggling with something. And the last 2 or 3 weeks, wearing those shoes, I was able to finish my entire project. And literally, I remember the day I put up my papers, wearing those shoes, because I finished the project and I knew that my boss will now accept my resignation. And so I wore those shoes and I went to this kind of one retreat the devotees were organizing. So I went to that retreat, and somehow that was in a different city called Pune. I was living in Mumbai that time. I went to that retreat. Guess what? I lost my shoes in that retreat. So exactly that, whatever 3 weeks I needed good luck, those shoes accompanied me. And I have no recollection of ever buying those shoes, and I don't know where those shoes went. Right. And yeah, those shoes helped me finish the project. Of course, my boss was very sad that I left. But yeah, and then life has taken a different turn, and today I am here with all of you. But I mean, of course, the point of the story is not to tell all the mystique or the miraculous. That's not the point. The point is that how sometimes, because of a certain immaturity, we may take some hasty decisions. We may have to sometimes make some decisions. But when the vision is clear, there is no loss in this path. That's the beauty of spirituality. That's the beauty of devotional service, right? There is no failure in spirituality. There is only growth. Whereas when you're talking in terms of the worldly aspects, there is success and there is failure. So we need to transcend the success and failure of this world and understand that the goal of all my work is purification of my consciousness. And in that purity of consciousness, I can connect to transcendence. Right? That should be my goal. So then, that should be my vision. Then, no matter, we will still have to address the immediate goals. Like I had to finish my project. Right? That was my goal that time. I accomplished that goal. But what gave me greater satisfaction was that, to me, that was, I could have quit. Technically, my boss cannot hold me back, but I could have quit, but I would have left that place with a bitter feeling, with some regrets. But I left that place with no regrets. I left that place with gratitude. I left that place with my boss also very happy with my work. And he said, like, at any point you ever want to come back to our office, we are fully open, da 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 da. He tried his best to keep me back and or pull me back again. But he was very happy with the quality of work and just our general rapport in general. So that's the point. So uh, that gives a kind of peace and purification of the heart, and that should be our goal, right? So while all this is just a description of the power of this devotional process, what is that one important critical aspect that uh, that defines the vision of a student, right? That comes now, right? So he's building up all this is priming. He's priming Vyasa before he gives the real point. He further says, persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, for that vision, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the highest topmost planet to the lowermost planet. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. And think about it, this is also such a liberating thought. None of us endeavor for misery, still it comes, right, on its own accord. Still we continue to work. It's not that one misery comes and then we collapse. We still continue doing our thing. Likewise, continue doing your thing, success will also come. So don't become obsessed with success and failure paradigm, right? This is the mindset we need to change. Rise beyond the conception of success and failure, right? So just as how miseries come, pleasure will also come, because at the level of the senses it's like a seesaw that keeps happening. But we want to rise past that level of this worldly duality, right? And then he says, therefore, my dear Vyasa, even though devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes may fall down somehow or the other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. And this is also a very powerful point, that little spiritual advancement that we make, mind you, even in the beginning stage also we experience some level of peace and joy and satisfaction in devotional life. And that even the little meager initial joy that we experience is such a powerful experience that you can never forget it. I still have some of my students whom I used to teach Gita during my university days. We were friends, colleagues, students, friends, sometimes my juniors. Many of them are still in touch with me, saying, not that they are like seriously practicing spirituality now, but they still, send those hello, hi messages, those, useless WhatsApp forwards. But when you on important days on New Year or something, or when I message something back, they always are still respectful and say, I really like that time we spent, those classes were very nice. I really want to take up to spirituality again, as if I am stopping them, they're taking my permission. Right? So I just say yes, but I know sometimes whatever, it's the choices that we make, it's not that Krishna is stopping them. It is just that sometimes Krishna reciprocates according to our choices. Sometimes we choose not to connect to Krishna, so Krishna reciprocates that way. He creates situations in our life where he allows us to forget him. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that how mattah smriti jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna says, I give memory, I give knowledge, I also give forgetfulness. He's so reciprocal with his devotees that if somebody wants to forget him, Krishna orchestrates their life in such a way that they get opportunity to forget him. And if somebody wants to remember, he also creates opportunities where they cannot forget him. Right? So this is the beauty of this devotional, that once having tasted, that ecstasy will remain again and again. Right? So this now he says very, very powerful verse, which gives what is technically called as the Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha Gyan means the foundational wisdom, the foundation of our relationship to Krishna, right? Because in our spiritual process, basically there are these three levels. We have three levels of understanding we need to evolve. First is the foundational understanding, then there is the applicational understanding, and finally there is the destination. Foundation, application, and destination. We heard about the destination earlier in the having that vision of the absolute truth, vision of being absorbed in Krishna. Yes, that is our ultimate destination. Developing that love for Krishna is the ultimate destination. But many times what happens, developing love for Krishna is the destination and not the process. It is not the application, right? And this is also a very big misunderstanding sometimes people go through, because bhakti, the end goal is developing love for God, but it doesn't mean every day you sit down and the process is not sitting and artificially shedding some tears for Krishna. It's a stage we need to evolve to, but the process is not that. So this misunderstanding between the goal and process many times creates confusion in people's lives. Why? Because before application comes foundational understanding. And that foundation is what Narada is trying to explain here. He says, the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, is himself the cosmos. Ultimately, everything that you see is Krishna, directly and indirectly. And still, he is aloof from it. So the screen that you are looking at right now is actually Krishna. Directly, yes, and or if that is difficult to relate directly, indirectly it is his energy. Right? But at the same time, he is still aloof from it. Meaning, it's not that if I break the screen, I destroy Krishna. He still has his own independent existence. Right? Like the example that is quoted, when you look at a tree, which part of the tree is the treeness stored? Is it in the leaf of the tree? Is it in the branch of the tree? Is it in the trunk of the tree? Or is it in the root of the tree? Right? Because let us say, if you say it's a leaf of the tree, somebody will pluck all the leaves, but still they will say, oh, this is the tree. Somebody may cut few branches, they'll say this is the tree. Somebody cut the whole trunk, right? And they'll say, oh, here I still see the root of the tree. Or that way indirectly tree is there. Even if you pluck the roots, they'll say, oh, the rest of the tree, I see it lying down here. So where is the treeness of the tree stored? The tree is simultaneously the root, the trunk, the leaves, and the branches, and still it is independent of all of them. Likewise, the Supreme Lord is this world, and yet he remains aloof from it. Or in other words, this is the vision that a student of spirituality needs to develop. Learning to see everything's intrinsic connection to Krishna. When I say everything, not just when you go to a temple, you see, oh, this temple is like the gigantic body of Krishna. Oh, these devotees, they are like part and parcel of Krishna. Not just that. Even when you go to your office, you should see your crazy boss as part of Krishna. Or when you go to a university, you should see your professor as part and parcel of Krishna. Right? Krishna is manifesting as your professor and giving you classes that day. Right? Or when you are driving in traffic and somebody comes and knocks your car, you should see, yes, the The guy who hit your car is also, an energy of Krishna. That learning, developing that vision, right? This is so, or in other words, one needs to be rooted in the understanding that ultimately I can develop a relationship with Krishna by learning to see everything's connection to Krishna. Right? Just like imagine you are this big fan of some some say some footballer. Maybe you're a fan of Messi or somebody like that. Right? Now you are, let's say you happen to walk in a football stadium, you go to the player rooms, and you happen to see Messi's t-shirt lying there. If you are a die-hard fan of Messi, you will immediately go and hug that t-shirt, and probably you will offer your obeisances to the t-shirt. Because why? Because it is Messi's t-shirt. He actually wore that t-shirt. Or maybe if you see a friend of Messi, or a friend of a friend of a friend of Messi, if you are a die-hard fan of Messi and if you're desperate to meet Messi, you will treat that friend of a friend of a friend as if they are Messi himself. Right? Why? Because your vision is very clear. I want to meet Messi. That should be the vision of a spiritualist, that we want to be similarly connected to Krishna. Then when we see everything's intrinsic relationship with Krishna, right, that is why we're able to see the Lord in the cosmos and still see him aloof from it. From him only this cosmic manifestation emanated, in him only it rests, and unto him only it enters after annihilation, which means the creation, maintenance, and eventual destruction is all being done by the Lord. Or in other words, there is nowhere you cannot not see Krishna. Right? Krishna or his personal energies working. Your good self knows all this. I have only given you a small synopsis. Right? He is telling Vyasa that this is the basic, and explain this concept of absolute truth. Right? And then if when people are rooted in this understanding, then they can develop that vision of connection to transcendence. This is the understanding. Now, this may seem, this connection to absolute truth, this vision of learning to see the absolute truth, it is not a training of the head, but it's more of a training of the heart. You cannot develop this vision by knowledge, but you can develop this vision through love. And therefore, it is not some knowledge, or it is not some understanding, it is not some set of 3 pointers that we need to always remember. That is not how spirituality works. We need to develop this vision of the absolute truth, to develop the connection to Krishna. We need to open our heart. And therefore, it is not knowledge alone, or some techniques alone, or some kind of meditative practice alone. That alone will not work. To open your heart, you need to allow yourself to be charmed by Krishna. And how do you allow yourself to be charmed by Krishna? He says, your goodness has perfect vision. You yourself can know the super soul personality of Godhead because you are present as a plenary portion of the Lord. We discussed how Vyasa is a literary incarnation of the Lord. Although you are birthless, you have appeared on earth for the well-being of all people. Please, therefore, describe the transcendental pastimes of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna more vividly. So this vision of the absolute truth can come when we hear more pastimes of Krishna, when we hear more Krishna Katha. Because what is the power of Krishna Katha? Krishna, through the sound vibration from our ears, he enters straight into our heart and starts living within our heart. Opens our heart and starts living within our heart. And that is how slowly we'll develop some affinity towards Krishna. Right? Because right now, we don't have love for Messi yet. So how can we become a die-hard fan of Messi. To become a die-hard fan of Messi, first we should start loving Messi. Likewise, before you adopt to this mood of a devotional student, and remember we discussed from seeker to student. So for this transition to happen, first we need to develop some level of affinity towards Krishna. And therefore, hearing these pastimes about the Lord, knowing about Krishna, knowing about Krishna's name, his beautiful form, his extraordinary qualities, and his amazing pastimes, they open your heart, they charm your heart, and that is how slowly we feel a sense of connection to Krishna. Then we'll be able to see the connection of the absolute truth, a connection of everything to absolute truth, right? This understanding is very, very important. Therefore, learned circles have concluded that the whole purpose of advancement of knowledge, austerity, study of Vedas, sacrifices, chanting of hymns, charity, they all culminate in transcendental description of the Lord. He says, Gunanu Varnanam, Varnana, description of the Lord's gunas. Ultimately, the purpose of all these activities is to open our heart and feel that connection to the Lord, right? And this is a very, very powerful purport, which I wanted to read. Let's read this. Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. What does it mean? By study of science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, one can attain perfection of life. You may be wondering, what? Am I reading it right? Yes, you are reading it right. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being Vishnu. The Shruti therefore directs, Shruti means the Vedic literature therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, people who are enamored with the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that the culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Just like how the goals that we have, the immediate goals we have, they are transient. Like last time we discussed, we attained it and then that's it, right? Because we lack the vision. So connection to Vishnu or Krishna is that ultimate vision. But when you don't have vision of Vishnu, we get trapped by the vision of Vishnu Maya. Those who are entrapped by this Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narad Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because the Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy the action and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy. They rest on his energy, and after annihilation, they merge into him. Therefore, none of them are different from him. But at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. So, just like when you are interacting with this world, it's such a powerful. If you think about it, if you are a student of, say, engineering, when you go to a new city, you will only see all the engineering marvels in that city. If you are a student of economics, you will only see how the different systems are set up, economical, financial systems are set up. If you are a student of psychology, you will only be intrigued by the different psychological patterns that you're seeing in the broader society, right? So when you become a devotee of Krishna, you will only see Krishna's energies interacting. They may all have external names and forms in the form of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. But you'll be able to appreciate, oh wow, how beautiful is Krishna's creation, right? You will give credit to art, science, philosophy, physics, etc., etc. But while giving credit to them, you'll also appreciate, oh, they are finally coming from Krishna's energies, right? While advancement of knowledge, when advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matters of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Right? So, which means when we have this vision of connection to the Lord, then you will find an opportunity to engage all of them and feel the connection to transcendence through all these activities, right? So for art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literators are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects, but if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasa is a great writer. Both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of Lord, and by doing so, they have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also should be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science. Therefore, a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculation should be used to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience or avidya. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is a real import. Science and all similar activities engaged in the service of the Lord are factually Hari Kirtan or glorification of the Lord. Another interesting personal story. The first time ever, like I started my spiritual journey when I was a student in the university, and I was very inspired, by the teachings of the Gita. And I first time came to Mumbai. I was a student in another city, and I first time came to Mumbai. I met His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and the only thing he told, when he got to know that we are students, the only thing he told us was, how we all have to become very exemplary and disciplined in our academic life. And I was like, what is this instruction this Swami is giving? He's renounced, right? And why is he asking me to, become very disciplined in my studies and make that as my goal, right? So it took me years to, of course, that was very, new that time. I could not understand the wisdom in that statement. But the point here is that through my through my academic work, that is also Hari Kirtan. So we all have different ways of doing Kirtan. Kirtan is not something that we do with music, with harmonium and kartal and mridang and all the musical instruments. Any activity that will inspire in you Krishna consciousness, inspire in people around you some level of spiritual consciousness, that is Kirtan. Right? So we don't want to stereotype what Kirtan is. Therefore, if you see practically Srila Prabhupada, he had this vision of how everything can be engaged. Printing presses can be engaged in Kirtan. In fact, he would call book distribution as Sankirtan. He could see how by setting up Govinda's restaurant, he said that is Kirtan. People are coming to eat Krishna Prasad. Very tasty Kirtan, perhaps the most amazing form of Kirtan. Right? He established the Bhaktivedanta Institute, a scientific research institute, where literally this verse is one of their mission statements, that how philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. A lot of scientific research is done there, extraordinary, like quantum physics and all these concepts are used to establish the understanding of theism, of Krishna consciousness that way. So many ways, so many fields we can use to glorify the Lord and we ourselves feel connected to the Lord. So when that vision is lacking, then we will be misguided. Not only will the followers be misguided, but the author himself was misguided, as we saw with Vyasa's situation. Therefore, Narada, drives home this point, and in the next discussion, we will see how Narada is going to share his own story, how this knowledge of the absolute truth, and how hearing Harikatha, and not just ordinary hearing Katha, the pastimes of the Lord, from self-realized souls, what kind of a transformation it can create. And the whole journey of his own life is going to share that. So literally these two classes are like introduction to lead up to this point where actual Narada's journey will begin in our next class. Okay, so yeah, so these are few thoughts which I wanted to share. If there are any quick questions or comments, if anybody wants to ask any questions, we can open the forum for discussion now. You can unmute yourself, or if you want to type it in the chat box, you can do it that way. And yeah, I hope the pace of the classes is fine, or is it, are you feeling it is going too fast, too slow?
Prabhuji, I have a question from last class.
Okay, good, nice, please go ahead.
So Prabhuji, we spoke about, like, we get confused between the tools, the means and the goals, and the ability and direction. Two things. So direction comes from the teacher and ability comes from the student. So here the teacher is like, who is the teacher? Means our Guru Maharaj, or are we supposed to expect that something is going to happen or something will come?
So from the broader context,
Yeah.
the Vedas are giving that direction, and the
Okay.
spiritual master is presenting those instructions of the Vedas, in a way we can process and unpack and understand. So
Okay.
all the teachings that the spiritual master gives are those directive instructions, right?
Okay.
And we have to make effort to qualify ourselves to start applying those instructions in our life.
Yeah, like.
I have one question, Nimai Prabhu.
Yes, please, Madhu.
Is that the destination is the develop love for God, and then we have the application. What would be? Can you repeat what would be the foundation and the application?
Yeah. So the foundational understanding is how Krishna is the absolute truth, meaning how he is the creator, maintainer, destroyer, everything is resting in him, and yet he is aloof from that. And I am that soul, eternal part and parcel of Krishna. That is a foundational concept. That is technically called as Sambandha Gyan, or the knowledge of the foundational relationship. Then the second level, the application part, which is technically called Abhideya, is the process of devotional service. Then the destination is, of course, prema, or developing that love for the absolute truth, love for Krishna. In fact, these three things are what that are explained in throughout the Vedas. That's it. There's nothing more than this. Right? Okay. All right. Okay. So let's.
So Prabhuji, the process is all this. We are doing the chanting. We are listening to class.
Correct. All the, the sadhana that we do, the swadhyaya that we make, the sangha, the sadachar that we follow, the etiquettes that we follow, all that, the whole lifestyle, the bhakti lifestyle, the teachings, all of that is the whole process, right?
This is the application.
That's the application part, correct. Right?
And what's the name in Sanskrit?
It's called Abhidheya.
Okay,
Abhidheya, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, in one of our future classes, these specific topics will also come. So we will elaborate more on that, yeah.
I just have a question as well. Like the application, like how do we know like what practices we should do? Should we do like practice all of them, or
well,
just enough to do like for example chanting?
Whatever you learned in YTTC, just do that.
Okay.
That's it. You don't have to invent anything. You don't have to break your head over what should I do. right? The daily practice, the basic, the sadhana that you learned, the basic asanas that you did, the basic meditation that you learned, the basic japa, mantra meditation that we learned. That's it, Kirtan. That's all you need to do. You don't have to do something extraordinary. Right? So literally, I don't know, was it your batch or the other batch? I was sharing in one of the graduation ceremonies that literally whatever you learned this 1 month is enough for your whole lifetime. If you can just even do 1/10 of what you did in this 1 month consistently for the rest of your life will be success. so you don't have to worry about it. Just focus on the basics that you learned in YTTC and just keep repeating that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's end the discussion here.